This is Dr. Chris's Radio of Horror program here on WCW, and tonight, as part of the 14th anniversary of Radio of Horror, we have a distinguished guest on the show with us, a man who's got acclaimed history in animation voiceover work, as well as cereal box voiceover commercialing with a certain Count of Chocolate, Count Chocula, who's celebrating his 50th anniversary, as well as the other monsters. We have Larry Kenney on the show with us to talk about his history in animation, as well as how he got into commercials with Count Chocula. Thank you for coming on the show with us, Larry.
It's my pleasure, Chris. How you doing?
Good. How has your pandemic been?
Oh, it's just wonderful. We've really enjoyed it. Of course not. It's been like everybody else's. It's frustrating, isn't it?
Little bit, but have you gotten to a chance to go to any conventions, or are you still staying home because of you don't want to get sick and you're
Well, I didn't go to any last year.
right?
It was the bad year, This year I did go. I went to I went to Nashville. I went to Connecticut. Well, I live in Connecticut. I went to Mohegan Sun one. Terrificon, and I went to Pensacola, Florida, and another one. I can't remember all of them.
Maybe have a return to conventions next year, possibly.
Oh yeah, sure. I don't have any lined up right now, but my agent is working on some. Definitely next year. The ones I went to this year, people did a fantastic job of making it safe and secure, and we never had to worry about, catching COVID there.
Of course. What have you been doing while you've been staying home? I'm assuming you have your own. Do you have your own recording studio at home in order to continue working?
I don't have a studio. I do some things from home. Just Friday, I did a new Skittles commercial. I've been the voice of Skittles commercials for 20 years, I guess. I'm the guy at the end of each one. It says, "Feel the rainbow, taste the rainbow."
Oh my God, that's you! That's awesome.
Yeah. So I did a couple of those, but the business has been very slow, as you can imagine, like everybody else's business. So I think I've been into Manhattan 3 times in the past 6 months or so. I didn't do it at all during 2020. Everything was shut down, like every other business. But things are picking up again now, and we're being hopeful it'll get even better.
Are you a big fan of Skittles yourself, or is it a candy you kind of stay away from because of, candy's not great for you?
Hey, watch it now. Most candy is not good for you, but Skittles, I believe, has been proven to cure lots of things. No, I'm just kidding. I do think they're great. I don't eat candy myself. I'm trying to lose some weight, stay in shape as much as I can. So I stay away from sugar. But I have tried them, and I thought they're very good.
Isn't it funny? You have to be the proprietor of a candy company, but at the same time be like, make sure you eat your vegetables with some candy too, kids.
All things in moderation.
Right. I think it's like a few years ago. I don't remember if you remember hearing about Cookie Monster being told that a cookie is a sometime snack and he needs to eat more vegetables. And people lost their minds because they were like, oh, come on!
Yeah, give us a break, right?
What came first? Working in cartoon, like animated series, or doing commercials?
Well, I was doing commercials a long time before I did Count Chocula and Cocoa Puffs commercials. The beginning of my career was in radio for many years. I started in radio when I was 15 years old, back in Illinois, and then I moved on to larger markets, Cleveland and Chicago, and then finally in New York, and that's where most of the commercials are done, in New York or LA. And so I had been doing, local commercials for department stores and things like that, in Cleveland and Chicago. And I came to New York and I started doing some national commercial work. And So it was only, not until let's see, I got my first, I got the job as Sonny, Cocoa Puffs Bird, in 78. Yeah, 78. And then a year later, they hired me to start doing Count Chocula. So I've done both of those for nearly 40 years now. But I had done many commercials before those two. Like back in the 70s and 80s, I was all over the place with commercials for Hasbro and Milton Bradley, a lot of games, like Hungry Hippos, and a lot of games back then.
You said you got your start in radio at 15 years old. I jumped into the radio game when I was 27 in 2007.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I was really very lucky, obviously. I had taken a radio class in my high school, which was very unusual at the time to even have a radio class in a small town in Illinois. And looking back on it, I kind of have to owe all my success to that beginning. Had it not been for that being offered, and then that got me a chance to audition for my first paying job in radio when it was like 2 weeks before I was 16 years old. And I stayed in radio for many years. I was on Imus in the Morning for 35 years. I don't know if you know that.
Wow. Did you just do commercials in radio, or did you get to host your own show?
No, I was a disc jockey. I started as a disc jockey and a DJ, which today a DJ is a different animal altogether. But we used to call guys on radio who played records DJs, disc jockeys. But now DJ means spinning records and clubs and things like that.
What was the name of your show?
The Larry Kenney Show.
Okay. What type of music did you play?
Well, I started out playing top 40. The Beatles, James Brown, Stones, This is back in 1963, so you can imagine we were playing back then. And then as I moved up to different cities, I moved on to Cleveland, and we were kind of what we used to call a middle-of-the-road format with pop music, but not, real hard rock, not heavy metal, certainly, anything like that. And then I actually became a country music disc jockey for several years in Chicago and New York.
Wow, that is quite the career in radio. Did you ever have like a what would you say was your most unusual, crazy experience in your history of at least the radio for now?
Oh wow! You mean that I can talk about?
Yeah, okay, listen, if you had an incident that was play Misty For Me, then that might be between you and your lawyer, but yeah, let's keep it into something that you don't have to worry about any legal ramifications. But if anyone is dead that you're going to talk about, that's totally fine.
Well, probably most of the people I'll be talking about are dead because it's been a long time. Gosh, I've forgotten your question now. The most interesting thing that happened as a disc jockey. Well, I can't look back on one particular episode, but being in radio, especially in the larger markets where you're interviewing stars, and coming into your studio and sitting there next to you, and I'm still a young kid, and I'm interviewing people like Tom Jones and people like that. So that was very exciting for me. And then when I got in the country, I got to meet a lot of great people like Kenny Rogers, Dolly Parton, Merle Haggard, Willie Nelson. I have to say I most enjoyed my days as a disc jockey at the country music stations because of the people in country music. They're just the greatest people in the world. The performers, the bands, the singers, and I got to the point where I became really good friends with a lot of country music stars and Johnny Cash and people like that. So that was probably my favorite part. But I really can't. I'm still trying to rack my brain and think of something really interesting happened. The thing is, when you start out in the business, especially as young as I did, you get kind of jaded. where I, like almost immediately, even in Peoria, Illinois, where I started, I was 15, 16 years old, and I was hosting, emceeing concerts with the Hollies and the big bands back then, and the big stars back then. And at first, of course, it's like the first few times you go home and you think, my God, I was sitting there with Tom Jones, and I was having dinner with the guys from the Dave Clark Five, And then after a while, of course, it just becomes part of the business, part of the job. It's always entertaining. It's always interesting. But you don't just go crazy every time. You just take it as it comes.
Did you what was Tom Jones your favorite musician to be able to meet him, or was it just iconic to be able to meet him?
The reason I think I bring his name up so often, and I do bring his name up so often, is Tom Jones was the most incredible, nice, personable, giving, caring person in the music business I have ever met. To this day, I've ever met. And I've met. Willie Nelson is also like that. There's certain people, in the business that, how can I put this? Sometimes things, well, I'm sorry. I haven't been asked this question in a long time. I appreciate you asking it, but it's making it difficult for me to think of how I want to phrase it. Let me just say this. Tom Jones, this was in Cleveland. In Cleveland back in the mid-'70s. And I was chosen to MC his show at the Coliseum there. And at that time, I was still kind of nervous when I would go backstage and to their dressing rooms and things like that. It's those things like, I'm not worthy, Plus, there was also sometimes this thing about performing acts like bands, rock bands and things like that. Sometimes they don't like the fact that you're going to introduce them. But I think part of that is because some of the venues they play, the local DJs get out there and just do like a 20-minute shtick, Hey, how you doing? I'm so-and-so from the Mighty 1290. And they just want somebody to say, here's Tom Jones, and which I did. But I'll never forget going backstage before the show and meeting his manager. And he said, oh, Tom has been waiting to meet you, and he takes me in the dressing room, and Tom Jones is standing there in a smoking jacket, satin or silk smoking jacket, with an ascot, if you remember what those things are. And when I walk in, he comes over with his arms spread. Larry, it's so wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. And I'm like stunned, because usually it's okay. Just say, here we are, and get off the stage. And then the really interesting part was after he and I had chatted for probably 2 minutes, he said, where is Sharon? And I said, Sharon? He says, yes, your wife. I said, well, she's just outside the door. And he jumps up and goes to the door and says, Sharon, come in, darling. Like I'd known him all my life, And I've never come across anybody quite that incredible. That's why I bring his name up a lot of times. There are other people who are like Willie Nelson is always, when I see him somewhere, it's like with the oldest friends in the world, and he asks how my kids are, and he knows their names. So that's been one of the most interesting things to me in my radio career. There are people in the business, and Kenney was another one. Just remember, I met him, I introduced him a show in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I was working there in like 1968. And several years later, when I'm in New York, in like 77, something like that, they put him on my show. They invited him to my show. And I wasn't about to say, we met,
Larry.
Yes.
Larry, just real quick, just speak up just a little bit, and or pull you, just speak up just a little bit, because it's getting a little soft.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Part of it is that I have laryngitis.
Oh my God, I didn't know. Oh Jesus.
Yeah, I do. I was, I mentioned Skittles. I've been doing their commercials for 20 years. I did some Friday, and that voice is one of the few voices that really rack my throat, because it's that gravel, feel the rainbow, taste the rainbow. And you do that like 50 times, and your voice is shot for the weekend, so I apologize.
Wouldn't it just be easier to use the same take, updated every few years based on how your voice changes, and then just pay you out some royalty?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, you can be like, listen, let's renegotiate my contract. I'll do this every 5 years, and you use the commercial for 5 years. Just pay me whatever percentage you and your management has worked out, and you don't have to do this like 50 times. Taste the rainbow, taste the rainbow, taste the rainbow. Whatever.
I do remember something kind of like that. I jokingly said in one recording session, the commercial is always something the rainbow, taste the rainbow. So it's only one new word every time we do the commercial. So one day I said to them, you guys should just book me for an entire day or 2 days, and we'll record every verb in the English language. And that way I won't have to come back. They said no.
What time of the day were you on doing your radio show?
I was usually doing what we call morning drive, 6 to 10 a.m. That became pretty much in radio. That's the top spot on the radio station, 6 to 10 in the morning. That's when they have the most listeners. People getting up, getting ready for work, driving to work. So that's morning drive time. And I did a couple of what we call afternoon drive times, which is like from 3 to 7. Some stations, but mostly the mornings, early morning.
And then you did that up to what year?
Well, I stopped doing my own show in at WHN in New York in 1979, I guess. And that's when I joined Don Imus, his show, Imus in the Morning. And then I was on his show every day, but I wasn't playing records. I was doing impressions of famous people and character voices in comedy bits.
Fantastic. What year did you get into Count Chocula? And were you the first voice for the Count?
No, I was not. Jim Dukas had been doing it when I was a kid, and I took over from him. He retired, I think, in 1979. Yeah, because I started doing Sunny in 78, the Cocoa Puffs commercials, and then Count Chocula in 79. So, and in both cases, both of those voices, I was not the guy who originated the voice. Chuck McCann, if you know that name, he was the voice of Sonny the Cocoa Puffs when I was a kid, or young man. And he moved in 78. He moved out to California, LA, and started doing movies and TV shows, and it was not convenient for him to come back to New York. So that's when they hired me to become the voice of Sonny.
How many commercials did you end up doing with the Count?
Oh God, I couldn't even count them. It's over 40 years. We would do probably 2 or 3 every year. So, you know what? I haven't counted them, but if you want to count them, go to YouTube. How many Count Chocula commercials and Cocoa Puffs commercials there are out there? That's how many I've done. What
do you think happened to cereal box commercials these days? Because you don't see nearly as many as we used to back in even the early 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, the 70s. They've really disappeared, with the exception of a few channels.
One of the reasons is because for various reasons, they wanted to eliminate what they called mascots, like Sonny, like Count Chocula. It became a whole thing about are we poisoning our kids with sugar? And there was these groups that campaigned to have the commercials changed, and finally they got rid of Count Chocula. They got rid of. In fact, they even stopped selling Count Chocula in the stores except for Halloween. You can still buy Cocoa Puffs, but the commercials will not feature Sonny anymore. For some reason, somebody figured out, well, the only reason they have these cartoon mascots, spokespersons, is to lure the kids in. And we don't like that. So they got rid of the mascots and got rid of me.
I mean, did you guys fight against this? Was there anything you could do, or did you have to just kind of suck it up and go, that's it?
Nothing, no, there's nothing you can do about it. It's the way of the world. You know, the world has changed a lot. And, I mean, it was I figured I had a great run, you know. I mean, I felt badly for some of the younger guys who had just started doing, and just were so excited because they got a new gig doing a new commercial, and then all of a sudden, that's gone, you know. But I've been very lucky and fortunate, and even back at that time, I was doing so many commercials for so many people. I mean, there are people who tell me I was the voice of their childhood because I was on those two commercials. I was on all the toy commercials and, you know, things like that. So I didn't really need it, but you know, it was too bad.
What came first, Count Chocula, Sonny, or you were also doing Tony the Tiger, right?
No, I never did Tony the Tiger.
Oh, okay.
Different company anyway. It's not General Mills. I think that's.
You're not allowed to cross over with other companies. They were like, no crossover.
They preferred that you didn't. I mean, they're paying you, you know, $100,000 a year to be the voice of, you know.
Wait, really? You get $100,000 a year doing commercials?
Well, for those two, I think it probably averaged about $100,000 a year.
That is crazy. That is awesome. That's. I mean, especially back then. I mean, $100,000 today is still a lot of money. But yeah. Even back then, $100,000 today with inflation is got to be over $1 million, right?
I think you're right. Well, here's the thing. I've lost my train of thought now. Don't get old as a bitch, I'm telling you. Yeah, because, you know, you would record a commercial, and then that commercial would be on the air, let's say, every day on the networks. You know, all day long, especially on the weekends. And whenever you record a commercial for network use, like in New York or LA or something, our unions, the Screen Actors Guild and American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, had a basic fee that had to be paid. And say you do a network commercial like Cocoa Puffs. Okay, you record the commercial, you get like $300 for recording, and then every time it's on the air, you get like $112. Let's say something. Every time it's on the air for the first 100 times. The second 100 times you get like $75, and then the next 100 times, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we call those residuals. Every time it's on the air, that's a residual. So during the course of a year, if you get a really big network spot, like a car, you know, like a Chevy spot, or a cereal, and something that's on the air all the time, over and over, it adds up. And I think it probably added up to like $35,000, $40,000 a year for each of those big commercials. And I was doing 2 of them for General Mills, and lots of them for Milton Bradley and Hasbro and all those toy companies. We call it the golden age of television commercials.
That's what I've heard before. Do you miss it? I mean, obviously the money is great, but do you miss that it's not as iconic as it used to be?
Well, you know, you get kind of jaded after a while. I guess anything you do, you get used to it. You know, I've never gotten over the fact that I'm grateful for it, that I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world. And if it hadn't been for my voice, I'd probably been washing cars somewhere today. I don't know. So I feel I'm really very lucky and fortunate to, especially to have worked during that period. We call it the golden years of radio and TV commercials, and everybody was making lots of money. And there were very few of us doing it. That's the main reason, I guess.
I'm assuming you've heard the news about Silverhawks is going to be the next 80s property that they're going to try and revive and do something with, right?
Yeah. I've heard you talk about that, but you hear things, you always hear things. There's going to be a new Thundercats movie, there's going to be this and that, and, you have to wait and see if it pans out.
I mean, after the last attempt of Thundercats, what was it, Thundercats Roar, I think they should leave Thundercats alone for a while.
It might be a good idea.
I mean, I know you're probably not allowed to say anything good or bad. You're not allowed to say anything that's like, I don't know, considered defamation of a property that you've worked on. But, I mean, when you saw that animation for Roar, did you say, what the heck?
I'm on that show.
I know.
I signed the contract before I even saw it crawling. I never would have if I'd seen the animation of it. But that's all right. It didn't last that great. So,
I totally understand. And it's not to ever get you in trouble, but I was just like, he had to have looked at this and gone, what the... learning about radio, I knew I'd heard about that before, but I was just like, well, I'm in radio, and he's been in radio, so we got to talk about radio. Have you ever thought about writing a book about, like, your history in animation and voiceover and where you came from in radio? Because, I mean, you're in your 70s, you've had an amazing career. There's got to be enough material to fill a 300-page book.
Probably, but I'm too lazy to do something like that. I'm too lazy to sit down and look through my research and all of that. I think what I do is do interviews like this with nice people like you who ask me the questions that would be answered in that book anyway. And so that's my contribution.
What was a job that you turned down that you wish you had done?
Oh gosh, I can't remember one. I mean, okay, I can't remember which one I wish I had done and turned down. But I can tell you, the only time I really ever turned down a commercial after I won the audition was, and I can't remember the name of the product, but it was for these pills that give you energy. I agreed to do the commercial, and then I started reading about this stuff, and so it's not good for you, And I just ended my association with it right there. I just didn't want to do that.
What's funny is that you got to turn to radio just a little bit as the radio guy in L.A. Noire. When I was looking through the voice cast, I was like, "Hey, I've met Larry before. That's awesome." So getting to play that game, I think that's where it got into my brain. I was just like, I know I've heard this radio. I know I've heard that he's been in radio before, but then that dawned on me that you were in L.A. Noire as the radio announcer.
Yeah, right. I've done several. That's another whole new business for us now. It's the video games, and I've done several. I did Grand Theft Auto 4. The most recent one was the Red Dead Redemption 2.
That's extremely popular, that Red Dead Redemption series. I've only ever played the first one a little bit, so Westerns aren't normally my big thing. Larry, thank you so much for coming back on the show. It's been a few years. It's always been great to meet you because you're usually up here for Super Mega Fest here in Framingham, Massachusetts. So hopefully you can come back up for it when things are better and you feel comfortable enough to go to a big con.
I'll do it. Thank you, Chris. It's great to talk to you again.
Yes, awesome. And you have a happy Halloween and happy 50th Monster anniversary as well, as you're part of the Monster family.
Thank you, buddy. Take care.
All right. Bye.